You're on mute.
Thank you so much for that. Let's start again. Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for All Missouri Students, sponsored by the Missouri Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so they cannot see or hear you. And this is just one of many different sessions being held over the next couple weeks, so please be sure to check out the full schedule at MOACAC.org. This recording from this session will also be available at that same website, as well as recordings from all other sessions. Again, it's MOACAC.org. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters.
Good evening. My name is Steve Landgraf, and I am an admissions counselor for Michigan State University. I'm actually based in the Chicago area, but I am originally from the St. Louis area myself. And so I want to say up front, I'm very mindful that we are competing against a St. Louis Cardinals playoff game right now. So thank you for tuning in. I know not all of you are Cardinals fans. You can be from anywhere around Missouri or maybe not into baseball, but thank you for giving up your time. And for those of you that maybe didn't watch this live because of the Cardinals game, thank you for tuning in and watching this on video later. So we've got some great info to share about Michigan State University geared at out-of-state students, especially those of you in Missouri. I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves, and then Lauren is going to kick it off with some slides, and you'll hear back from me in a little bit, and then my colleague Amelia is going to share as well, and then we'll have some time for any questions you have at the end. Just know that if we don't get to all of your questions, we will get a transcript of all of them later, so we can certainly follow up, and we'll definitely share all of our contact information as well. So I will let Lauren and Amelia introduce themselves, and then Lauren will start us off with some slides.
Thanks so much, Steve. My name is Lauren Kennedy. I'm also an admissions counselor with the Michigan State University Office of Admissions. I'm born and raised in Michigan. I'm an MSU alumni, and I'm really excited to share with you everything about our university and a little bit just about life at MSU. And I'm going to kick it off to Amelia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amelia Hammond. I am the recruitment coordinator, but I'm also an academic advisor at James Madison College at MSU, so one of the residential colleges. And I'm here tonight to speak with you a little bit about the opportunities with the residential colleges at MSU.
Thanks so much, Amelia. Well, without further introductions, I'm going to jump right into our slideshow. So first of all, you might be thinking, where is MSU? MSU is located in central Michigan in beautiful East Lansing. It's really actually very easy to get here from our Detroit International Airport. We have the Michigan Flyer, which is a bus that takes you directly from Detroit International Airport to East Lansing. So it goes straight from the airport to campus. It's around $30. Just very simple to get here. Even after you get in Detroit, it's a very short, it's around an hour drive to our actual campus. Just one highway all the way east to East Lansing. So very easy to get to. One of the biggest things that people think of when they actually arrive at MSU is it's a very, very big. MSU is actually one of the largest universities geographically speaking, but we're also one of the largest universities in the country population wise. So if you take a look at your screen right here, you might just be listening. I want you to really look at these numbers. Our total students right now hovers around 50,000 students, and you might be feeling that that's very overwhelming, but there's so many ways at MSU to make your actual group smaller. And we don't think of our size as a disadvantage. In fact, we think that with size comes advantages. We have students come to MSU from all over the world, and it's really one of the things that makes your experience here so wonderful. It just adds so much to the overall experience. I know that one of my favorite things about being a Spartan was meeting people from all over the world. We have students from every county in Michigan. I think that one's usually pretty obvious, but every state, and then over 130 countries as well. So it's really exciting. Also, because of our size, we have degrees. We have over 200 areas of study from over 17 degree granting colleges. 3 of those 17 degree granting colleges are residential options. You might have never heard of a residential college before, but a residential college is a really wonderful opportunity that you have at Michigan State University. It's an opportunity to study. You're living and learning in the same place. So you can go downstairs out of your dorm and go eat breakfast. Your classes are going to be within that building. Your professors, your advisors, all within that same building. And Amelia is going to touch on that later. But we really do have 3 of them. The first and the largest is Lyman Briggs College. That's for students that are interested in the natural sciences, mathematics. We have James Madison College for those students that are really interested in the type of pre-law and civic studies such as that. And then we have the Residential College for Arts and Humanities. That's for students that are really interested in the social justice side of art. So again, 3 very, very unique opportunities. And with those residential colleges, here you're at MSU, which is such a large school, a Division I school, one of the Big Ten universities. It's so big, but those residential colleges give you the experience of a small liberal college while you're at such a large university. So that's one of the really beautiful things about our university. And again, over 200 areas of study. So with that, even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, which I know most students don't, you have that time and you have that such big opportunities to really whittle down what you really want to do and explore what you're passionate about. MSU has a great opportunity to have smaller classes, even though we are a large university. 16:1 student to faculty ratio. 84% of our classes actually have 50 students or less. So you will have opportunities at MSU where you go in and it's that traditional college lecture room that you see in the movies. MSU is like that for certain classes, especially as a freshman, just getting those university required classes done. But then you're going to see that you have more opportunities as you go on to become, especially a junior and a senior, to really see those smaller classes and study with a smaller group, finding what you're passionate about. There's so many things though that at MSU where you can expand on what your actual degree is. You're going to add value by making as much of your of your opportunities at MSU as possible. Those 4 years go so quick. They fly by, and at the time you don't think that they are, but by the end of those 4 years you go, oh my goodness, how am I already out of college? I know that I certainly felt that way. That's why while you're here, take advantage of entrepreneurship. We have a really cool opportunity at MSU to add that business element to your degree. We have startup resources for students that are interested in their own business. So let's say that you are interested in a major that has nothing to do with business. You can pick up this minor and you can add a business element to your degree. Such a neat opportunity that's going to give you experience. It's going to give you something to put on your resume. We have undergraduate research. Being such a great research institution, we give our freshmen even the opportunity to partake in these research opportunities. Again, you're going to connect with people in your field. You're going to really just expand yourself. You're going to challenge yourself, and it's going to pay off in the long run. We also have education abroad. Obviously, being the year that it is, we're not offering that right now. But in the future, and hopefully by the time that you're all applying and going off to college, those opportunities are going to be back for you. Regardless of your major, there are education abroad opportunities for you. We also have over 900 student organizations. Now, these can vary from religious organizations to Greek-like organizations, things that pertain to your major, just special interests. There's over 900 groups. So this is a really interesting opportunity for you to connect with those students that are like-minded with you, build your community, build your circle of friends. It's one of the best things about MSU. There's also executive board leadership opportunities available with these organizations. So you can actually put A leadership role, such as like, let's say that you're the president of a club, you can add that to your resume and that's going to pay off in the long run. So again, we have a really fun campus as well. We have a Broadway venue right on campus, where it would be very expensive for me to go to a Broadway show on MSU's campus. It's very, very affordable for students. You want to make sure that you're taking the most of this. Obviously, we are known for our sports, but you don't have to be at that Big Ten Division I level to enjoy playing the sport that you might have been passionate about through high school. We have our intramural sports, our club sports. So there's really an opportunity at every level. MSU is also a beautiful campus. We have the Red Cedar River that runs right through. So there's just so many beautiful things about our campus and things that are going to add to your adventure here. One of the most wonderful things about MSU while you're actually here as a freshman, you will be living within our residence halls. There's 27 of them in 5 unique neighborhoods. So this is a really wonderful time, because when you're admitted and you're figuring out where you're going to live, you can look and see what neighborhood you think that you would fit in best at. We make sure that they're safe. We have different things that we can do. We have electronic access for safety. We have these green phones on the side that make sure that students have access to our safety at all times. There's 2 different style bathrooms and a residence hall. Within our residence halls, there's always our food right there. So you're taken care of, you're going to be comfortable and safe while you're at MSU. And then of course, even after you graduate, MSU always has your back. We have a philosophy of Spartans helping Spartans. Every spring after commencement, we have a large resource fair where employers are coming and they want to hire our Spartans because they know that Spartans are ready to work. They're well educated, they are trained. So that's one thing that's really exciting. We have one of the highest placement rates in the nation. If you want to look at your screen right now, 95% of our Spartans are going off within 6 months and either getting jobs or enrolling in a graduate school. We also have one of the highest retention rates for freshmen that are going off to be successful sophomores. We have over 500,000 living alumni. So this is just really things that you want to think about, because you don't want to just think about where you're going to go to school, where you're going to have a great time learning and expanding your circle of friends. You really want to think about where you're going to be, what your goals are, and how we're going to get you there. One thing that gets our Spartans to their graduation and obtaining their goals is our engagement centers within those neighborhoods that we just spoke about. Within those engagement centers, we have the Neighborhood Student Success Collaborative. It's a really amazing thing because we have tutors, advisors, cultural support, all within that one area within your neighborhood. So ultimately you can study and be great, but we want you to be well with yourself, and we want you to have the resources that you need to be successful. So obviously we're investing so much into our students, but with that investment, there's also the investment that a student puts in to our university. So with that, I'm going to kick things off to Steve, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about our estimated costs.
Great segue into a big question, as it should be, of how much does this all cost and how do I get to be a Michigan State student? So I'll talk a little bit about that, about the cost and the application process. So this is just the base price in terms of what out-of-state costs look like as a Missouri student in terms of tuition, room and board, and fees. Now keep in mind that really none of our students from Missouri are gonna pay this full amount, but this is the base price in terms of out-of-state tuition being about $40,000, room and board being about $10,000, and that total cost being a little north of $50,000 per year. Another thing I like to point out with this slide is we do have block tuition or flat rate tuition, where anything from 12 to 18 credit hours is the same price. So practically speaking, for a fall or spring semester, we're talking taking 4 to 6 classes. So whether you're taking 4, 5, or 6 classes, all going to be the same price. So if you are ambitious about trying to finish school early, or maybe having a double major or minor, that's a great thing to keep in mind. And you're not going to find that at every school. A lot of schools, you're just paying by the credit hour, but we want our students to be able to have more opportunities and graduate in a timely manner. So we do have that flat rate tuition. And we really encourage students to take at least 15 credits every semester, but ideally you might even try to take one more. So this next slide, though, is nice to pivot to in terms of talking about how does a student pay for that? Great information there in terms of awarding over $1 billion in financial aid in 2018, 2019. And that stat about 69% of freshmen receiving aid can be a little misleading because that's talking about the entire university. And our pricing model and our tuition is different for Michigan students and out-of-state students and international students. So talking specifically for you as a Missouri student, probably about 94% of our out-of-state students are receiving aid. So that's an even more impressive stat than 69% of our overall students receiving aid. And there's some other great resources on here in terms of sites like fastweb.com and scholarships.com, where you can look for other outside scholarships that are going to help mitigate that cost. And those are things that you could apply at any school if you're in any outside scholarships. So whether you choose to attend Michigan State or not, definitely want to be spending some time dedicating to looking for some of those outside resources as well. As it says on here, all of our admitted students are going to be considered for scholarships and a spot in our honors college. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. But this next slide talks at a glance of like, what do those scholarships look like? So you'll also see on the side here that we are test optional for this year. And I'll talk more about what that means too. But for the sake of argument, you know, saying, well, what if I do have a test and I'm excited about my test score and I want to send it in? You can totally do that. We're going to go by your highest composite test score for the ACT or SAT test. And on the bottom, that's referring to your cumulative GPA for freshman through junior year. And we're going to utilize whatever's the highest GPA listed on your transcript. So for a lot of your schools, that might be a weighted GPA. So we will take that weighted GPA if your school lists that. So this chart tells you very transparently what your scholarship would be. And I think that's really helpful as you're deciding on schools to apply to. And just keep in mind, this isn't really the floor. This isn't the ceiling. Sorry, I said that backwards. You can definitely earn more scholarships from us in terms of money from our honors college. We also have a great study abroad scholarship that I'll touch on too. So again, this is the floor and not the ceiling. We actually give out up to full ride and full tuition scholarships for out-of-state students. And as it says on the side there, we have a very holistic review process. So if you do not have an ACT or SAT score because you haven't been able to take the test or you don't feel comfortable going to sit for a test date, or maybe you just weren't satisfied with your test score and would choose to not send it in, you won't be at any sort of a disadvantage. I feel like that is the biggest question I get. I was talking to a parent just today who is like, yeah, I know you're test optional, but really, like, I'll have a better chance of getting admitted or getting more scholarships if I attend this test score. And I'm like, that's actually not the case. We do not want to disadvantage students who don't have a test score to send in. So again, we are completely test optional for this particular application cycle. So like I said, you are going to be considered for a spot in the honors college as well as these out-of-state scholarships right when you apply. If you are invited to the honors college, they're going to tack on an additional $5,000 or $13,000 on top of what you're seeing on this chart. And then we also do a scholarship competition in January and February. This year, it will most likely be a virtual event, but it's a test that we administer, and that's how we're giving out some of those full tuition and full ride scholarships. But just all of our out-of-state students do get that presidential study abroad scholarship. As Lauren said, that is a huge thing for us to study abroad, 275 programs across 70 countries and going to all 7 continents. So all of our out-of-state students get $3,000 or $5,000 towards a study abroad scholarship. And that amount just varies depending on the length of the trip. So another thing to keep in mind as we talk about costs, you can file the FAFSA starting tomorrow. Tomorrow is October 1st, and you can start filing the FAFSA. And if you list Michigan State on there, we will consider you for need-based aid, but certainly important to file the FAFSA in terms of being considered for any sort of student loans or grants from the government as well. If you can go ahead to the next slide here. Talks about our application process. So how do you become a student at MSU? Some of you have maybe already started working on your applications. So there are 3 places where you can apply. You can either apply through our website or the Common App or the Coalition application. We have no preference. We know a lot of you will choose to use the Common App because it's a big time saver that you can apply to a bunch of schools at once. Our application works great too. We really have no preference in terms of how you choose to apply. But beyond that application, we do need to get an official transcript from your high school. We also do have you write one brief essay, as you see on the slide. We do not require any letters of recommendation, so you don't have to send those along to us. You certainly can if you want to, but they're not required. And there is also a $65 application fee to submit your application to Michigan State. Some students will qualify for a fee waiver, and it asks about that right on the application. We do not need any additional paperwork or documentation about that. We just ask you if you meet any of the criteria right on the application. So again, we are test optional for this year. So I didn't mention that specifically either. That is up to you if you want to apply with the test score. You do have to let us know before you click submit. You know, when you're sending in your application, you have to let us know if you're choosing to send a test score or not. And unfortunately, you can't change that later. You have to decide when you're applying. But if you do have test scores, you'll actually self-report those test scores when you apply. If you are able to retake the test again in the fall or spring and earn a higher test score, we'll certainly add that to your file. You aren't able to go back and self-report a new test score, but if we get that official score report and it affects your scholarships or anything, we'll certainly update that if you send us a new test score. So just remember 4 things that we need before November 1st. And we have another slide here coming up about that, I think. No, this is another slide, sorry, talking about test optional. So just to reiterate that we are test optional for this year. I think I already talked about that quite a bit. You will also see on your application, there's a community impact question that just talks about how you and your family might have been impacted by the coronavirus. You don't have to feel obliged to have to answer that question, but if there's something that you think we should know about how you or your family have been impacted by that, certainly share that. That way you have the regular essay to write about something else beyond that, because you have a separate spot where you can touch on any impacts you've had through the coronavirus. So I think there's 1 or 2 more slides here. This next one, yeah, this talks about the dates. I get that question a lot too. When's the best time to apply? And as an out-of-state student, we really would encourage you to apply by November 1st. That is our early action date. It's not binding in any way, but if you apply by November 1st, that means you will get maximum scholarship consideration for everything from the admissions office as well as the honors college. And you'll also hear an admissions decision from us no later than January 15th. So I would really stress getting that everything in by November 1st. Again, filling out the application online, whether it's on the Common App or our website or the Coalition application website, having that official transcript sent to us from your high school, paying your application fee, of course, and then writing that essay. And again, if you have test scores, you will actually self-report those, or you can choose to apply test optional. So again, definitely get that all in by November 1st. And then May 1st, of course, is that National College Decision Day. There may be some flexibility on that with a lot of schools come this spring, but for now, I would definitely target May 1st as your college decision day to have that all wrapped up. So can you go ahead to the next slide here? Unfortunately, we aren't doing any sort of visits directly on campus at this time. We're not going to be doing anything like that for the rest of the year. I'm not sure what that's going to look like for the spring at this point, but at least for now, for the rest of the year, we are not hosting any visitors on campus. We know that some folks are going to come and explore anyway, you know, whether they're on vacation or visiting relatives, whatever, you're welcome to come and see the campus. Just know we aren't offering anything officially, and it's going to look a lot different. A lot of things are certainly closed. A lot of staff and students aren't really there, so it's going to look a lot different. But if you do choose to go that route, there is info about like self-guided tour advice on our website. Plus, there's just a lot of ways that you can explore through this website. There's a great Google Maps tour where you can virtually walk around campus and see Sparty around our campus. There's lots of video content, and a lot of our individual academic colleges are doing different virtual visit opportunities too. So definitely check out admissions.msu.edu/visit for all sorts of information about how to connect with us when we can't, unfortunately, at this time host in-person tours, but lots of virtual ways to connect to. And definitely follow up with me. This next slide has a great picture of me and Sparty. I have gotten to meet Sparty several times. So it's got my email, landgr17@msu.edu. So I work with all of our Missouri applicants, whether you're coming in as a freshman or transfer student, no matter where you're at. in Missouri, I would be your admissions counselor. So feel free to follow up with any questions that you might have. So with that, I will turn it over to Amelia to share a little bit more, and we'll just take us a second to switch from sharing screens here, but I'll turn it over to Amelia to talk a little bit more detail about our residential colleges.
All right, hello everybody. So it's so nice to be with you tonight. One of my student workers last year, Sydney, was from Southern Missouri. And so you definitely have representation on campus. So like we said earlier, I'm going to talk a little bit about the residential colleges at Michigan State University. You know, you heard a little bit about this in some of the previous slides, but the concept of taking a big place like Michigan State University and making it feel a little bit smaller. So a lot of times people get kind of confused about it being a school within a school, but kind of just the definition of a university is an institution that's made up of multiple colleges. And the college is the organizational unit that houses the majors. So in that sense, we're just like any of the other colleges at MSU, College of Business, College of Education, College of Engineering, but with this residential college concept, it's connecting your academic experience with your residential experience. For most students, what you study and where you live are not connected at all. That's the direct connection between the residential college experiences. So with this, they're intended to be smaller communities within MSU. So all three of our residential colleges have limited enrollment. So we use capped admissions to manage the number of students we bring into our classes each year. So that way we can offer our students the experience of having smaller classrooms. So Lauren kind of mentioned that all of your MSU classes will work their way down to smaller experiences kind of as you move through. In a residential experience, we want you to have that starting in year one. We want you to have classes where you get to know your classmates, where you have actual faculty members teaching in your classes in your first year, not having to wait until you're a junior or a senior to have that actual professor in your classroom. And it's really designed to be a relational space. You get to know your classmates, you get to know your professors, they get to know you. I'm an academic advisor, so I get to know my students really well and guide them through it. So it's designed to be kind of a supportive community. I'm a huge advocate of fit. So while I think residential colleges are a great opportunity for students, it's all about exploring all of the options that you have and knowing that this is a good fit for you. So just kind of going through the factors of why you might choose a residential college over bigger MSU, because most of what we study at residential colleges you could get in bits and pieces of through other majors on campus. But it's kind of nice to have that experience where it's like you're attending a small liberal arts college, but plunked in the middle of a Tier 1 research institution, Big Ten campus like Michigan State. So it allows you to have that small school experience while also still having that experience and the excitement that comes with an institution like Michigan State University. So I'll talk about ARCA first, Residential College in the Arts and Humanities. One thing you'll pick up really quick about MSU and any other institution is we use a whole lot of acronyms. So ARCA. So as the name implies, this is for students who have kind of creative interests, but are also interested in things like literature and history and social change. So it's taking the arts, humanities, and community engagement and kind of looking in the middle. Where are those overlapping? So while some, students may take a history class and may take a theater class and may take an art class, ARCA classes are kind of looking in the middle of that and maybe doing historical dramas or doing an art piece around the social justice issue. So these are kind of the pillars that they have. So students who want to have a small experience and study from a few of those different areas instead of just focusing on one thing. So ARCA students tend to have multiple interests and have a nice space to explore all of those things and not be limited or siloed. They have different trackways, so you can decide if you want to focus more of your attention on the arts or on the humanities or on the community engagement piece. And the community engagement piece is a huge part of their curriculum. So all students will be involved in community engagement and do service learning projects through their classes. So they will have classes who work with the local refugee development center in Lansing. They'll have classes that will go and do poetry workshops within an area prison and work within school systems to work with the children there. So it really offers you the opportunity to try a lot of different things and to see how you can make an impact. ARCA they're the smallest of the 3 residential colleges, so they have about 200 students total, and what they really do well is placement. Because of that small number of students, they're really able to work with those students individually. They're the newest, so they've been around a little over 10 years now, but they've boasted 100% placement rate within 6 months of graduation for all of their students over the past few years. So definitely a great place where you can go on to do things in the arts, in media, you can do things in business, you can go into a lot of different avenues with an ARCA degree. Lyman Briggs is focused on math and science. They have over 40 different majors that you can pursue within the natural sciences. So a lot of their students will be pre-professional students, pre-med, pre-vet, pre-dental, pre-PA. So if you're thinking any of those interests, this could be a really great fit for you. If you're thinking that you like things like mathematics and you want to do research, or you're looking at all the other areas beyond even the medical field, it can also be a really good fit to explore those. Because again, with that smaller class size, with smaller labs, you really get that ability to find your passions within that and to try different things within the sciences. One of the things that I'll point out about Briggs that makes them a little bit different from other places you might do science and natural sciences is what you'll see at the bottom of the screen there, the history, philosophy, and sociology of science. So this is what sets them apart in that it's not just learning science for the sake of learning science, it's talking about why science matters in the world. If we're talking about coming up with the vaccine for the coronavirus, what is the history of how these drugs are developed? What is, the philosophy of how we test these drugs? How do we bring, test subjects in and agree to that? And what are the risks associated with it? The sociology of that. How does that impact societies? How does it impact societies if people can be protected? How do you decide which people get the vaccine first? So really understanding the impacts. So for students who are thinking pre-med, med schools like this piece, because if you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be working with people, right? So this means that you understand the impact of working with patients. In terms of by the numbers, Briggs is our biggest of the 3 residential colleges. So they have about 2,000 students total. They bring in about 575 students in their incoming class, and they have a 97% placement rate within 6 months of graduation. Students going on to professional school or going on to career path employment. So I work out of James Madison College. As the name suggests, we're pretty policy oriented. So looking at public policy and international affairs. We do that through 4 different majors, which you can see listed on the screen. So a couple majors that are more international in their focus, international relations and comparative cultures and politics, and a couple majors that are more domestic to the United States, social relations and policy and political theory and constitutional democracy. So our majors are interdisciplinary. So that's going to be something that sets us apart from some of the other similar social science-based majors at MSU. We get a lot of overlap with something like political science. And the way I like to describe the difference is that we're not just limiting ourselves to studying something from that political science perspective. We're also pulling from the fields of economics and history and criminal justice and sociology and philosophy and world studies. And so it's all about bringing in all of the different fields that we can. We have faculty from all of those different fields, and really helping students understand where issues are interconnected, to look at things like international trade or international security, or look at what's happening in the United States to understand, racial conflict and understand issues of equity and how that impacts different communities. So really kind of exploring those themes and helping our students to, be able to examine issues and understand what we might be able to do to solve these issues. We tend to be very popular for students thinking pre-law. So the skills we emphasize, critical and analytical thinking, strong writing skills, logic and reasoning, that's what you're going to pull from all of your Madison classes, regardless of the Madison major you declare. But we're not just producing students going into law school. We'll also have our graduates go into fields of politics and government, go into nonprofit agencies and community development. We'll have graduates go into the business world. That's becoming increasingly popular. Just today on our college's website or on our Facebook page, we dropped a post to have people chime in about what year they graduated or what they're studying and what they're doing now. And there were some super fascinating job titles on there, all the way from foreign service officer to people working in insurance to people all over the place. So you should check it out. It's pretty cool. By the numbers, we're kind of the mid-sized residential college. We have about 1,200 students total, about 50 faculty on our staff. So our average class size is about 25 students. So our graduation rate is above MSU's average. We're at about 87% of our students graduating within 6 years at MSU. And again, Lauren boasted MSU's strong placement rate within 6 months of graduation. Like the other residential colleges, Madison is above that. So we're among the best at MSU in getting students placed within the 6 months after graduation. So Steve talked to you a little bit about the application process. So the good news is it's that easy if you wanted to do one of the residential colleges as well. You fill out your MSU application, whether you're doing it through the Common App, through the Coalition app, through our own website, and all you need to do is indicate the specific residential college on your application as your major preference. So there's a drop-down menu where it lists all the different areas of study and majors at Michigan State. If you were interested in Lyman Briggs for doing natural sciences, you wouldn't pick the biology, you would pick Lyman Briggs. If you were interested in studying through ARCA, then you would put arts and humanities, not the specific kind of area of focus that you have. For James Madison College, you would put James Madison College specifically. So that's all you need to do. There's nothing different in how your application is reviewed. You're viewed as an applicant to Michigan State, regardless of the major you put. So if you're deemed admissible for MSU and you've identified the residential college for your major, you're automatically admitted into that as well. I mentioned we're all limited enrollment, so that just means we admit on a first come, first served basis. So there's no secondary review. It's just that you've submitted your application early. We recommend before November 1, and we're admitted while we still have space. Otherwise, we all move to a wait list and we still work to bring in as many students as we can at that point. So that's all there is for the residential colleges. There's always more, so I encourage you to reach out. I put the contact information in the slides, and I can drop it in the chat as well. But please reach out and let us know how else we can kind of help you determine if this is the best fit for you, and we'd love to have you on our campus. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amelia. So we have just a few minutes left here to wrap up, just about 5 minutes or so. So now would be a great time if any of you have any questions that have popped up. I wish that we could see and hear you, but we can't. I wish that we could chat, but with the webinar feature, there really isn't a chat. There's just the Q&A. So if you want to type any questions, that would be great for you to type out anything that you're curious about, and we will do our best to address that. But if we don't have any questions, I always have questions, and I feel like, you know, we should fill our time while we're here. Unfortunately, I didn't go to Michigan State University. I spend a lot of time in a regular year going back to campus and learning as much as I can, spending time at the dairy store, spending time at Starbucks, and going on adventures. Like the last time I was on campus, we got to tour the horse farm, and we got to see all sorts of rare books and comic books at the library. So Michigan State is a pretty awesome place to work as well and be a part of the adventure as an employee. We do have a question. When will a decision be made about in-person campus visits for spring 2021? I am one of those people who is not afraid to say, I don't know, because that's the honest answer. No decision has been made. None of us know. Nobody really knows. It's really, unfortunately, everything with the coronavirus is kind of going to dictate that. We would love to have all of our students back on campus in the spring. We would love to be hosting visits in the spring, but no decisions have been made on any of those items because it's really going to, I think, depend a lot on what the rest of this semester looks like. So we would love to have you back on campus, but no decision has been made on that yet. But that website will be the most current information, admissions.msu.edu/visit. I would say if we were able to offer visits in the spring, I assume we'll probably prioritize those high school seniors who have already been admitted to MSU, because even if we are able to offer visits, they're going to be limited in terms of the number of folks who can come see us on campus. So that's a really, really great question. So anything else that either of you would like to add related to visits, or anything that, like, as we're wrapping up, you're like, oh, I forgot to say that thing, like anything else that either of you want to add?
I would just like to reiterate, Steve, all of the resources online to really visit campus, even though you can't right now, because really at the core of MSU, there's so many amazing universities across the country. There's so many ways, you know, you can get your degree, but the really one thing, to me at least, when I was an undergrad at MSU, is our campus. Our campus is amazing. There's so many different things to explore. There's so many different things to see. We have great architecture. We have really old buildings. That's the traditional side of campus that looks like Hogwarts. It's super cool. But we also have modern buildings that are beautiful with modern art. And it just really is a wonderful campus. It's very much a friendly campus. MSU, I always felt like it's your place, it's your community. People are friendly. We really do have that Midwest friendliness at MSU. It's very welcoming. It's a very warm campus, and it's very easy, again, to find your people. We have different cultural groups. We have so many different groups, and there's so many opportunities to get involved at MSU. We're a very busy campus. There's always something going on. There's always people doing something. And I think that's just one thing that's really, it puts us apart from a lot of other colleges. So please go to that website and just, we even have a YouTube playlist. You can just kind of explore and see what you can right now, because it is a bummer that, you know, everybody's so distant right now, but we're trying to make the most of it. And if you want to go to our website and sign up for another webinar a little bit similar to this, we also have our tour guides give a virtual campus. So if that interests you, please go on that website.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll say that, you know, there's definitely no replacing the in-person side of things, but in my role as the recruitment coordinator, I'm trying to find the ways that this actually becomes an equalizer, right? Things that we can do differently for you that we can't do in normal semesters. So I know not everybody always has the opportunity to make the trip for a class visit, but I know for my college, I'm making that available for students since we're a Zoom university this semester anyway. If students are interested in sitting in on a class, I'm working with faculty to try to get students in. So if it were Madison, like, I can say, yes, we can do that. But otherwise, you might check with the fields of study that you're interested in to see if that's even an option for you, because seeing campus is one thing, absolutely, but getting the academic experience, I think, is another great opportunity that shows you, you know, is that something that you would enjoy studying?
Yeah. Thank you both so much. I did think of one other question as we wrap up, and it may sound silly, but it is a question I feel like I get a lot in St. Louis. What is the weather like in East Lansing, Michigan, compared to if I'm growing up in St. Louis or Kansas City or Columbia or Jefferson City? What is the weather like in East Lansing compared to Missouri?
I mean, we get all 4 seasons. There's no denying that. And this year, we're actually mostly on the mark. Like this year, the first day of fall actually felt like fall. So it's starting to get a little cooler. I put on my warm sweater today. It's probably going to be a cooler winter. We get the snow. Typically, the snow starts like once the new year hits. And that's where you just kind of brace yourself. You can always tell, like, the out-of-state students who come from somewhere slightly warmer because they put on their big winter coats a little bit earlier. But then you take the bus, you bunker down in your dorm room for a little bit, and then when spring comes, campus is absolutely beautiful, and everybody is out on the grass studying in their tank tops and playing frisbee and playing music really loud and distracting me from my work since I'm on campus.
I feel like I'm there. You painted a picture. So I know our moderator is going to pop up because I believe we are at the limit of our time. But again, if you're worried about the weather, also keep in mind you can ride the bus for free. That's what I hear a lot from our out-of-state students, especially those worried about the weather. You can ride the bus for free if you don't want to have to walk around. So thank you all very much for coming to learn about Michigan State. We hope to connect with you more.
Thanks so much for a great presentation. I love the enthusiasm that you have for your university. So thanks for sharing that with us. And participants, thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback that you could provide. Also, just again, a reminder, this is just one of many sessions that is available, so please check the schedule at moacac.org. And again, in about a week, this session's recording as well as other recordings will be available to you, again, at that same website, moacac.org. And again, thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.